What is up, Breaking Bad fans? Kino here, and we are back with another Breaking Bad log. Today we're looking at the third episode of the fifth season, Hazard Pay. Now, we open the episode with a lawyer, Dan Wachsberger, going to visit Gus's men in lockup. Mike is posing as a paralegal in order to meet with his guys. He tells them to remain quiet and promises them he will get them their hazard pay. Trusting Mike, they agree. After the title, Walt returns home with his things. He has unilaterally decided to move back in. Skyler doesn't like the idea, but is too scared to say anything about it. Later, Mike waits outside Saul's office. Walt and Jesse are inside, informing Saul about their new partnership. Saul doesn't want Mike involved after he threatened to break his legs, but he's forced to agree. Mike then lays down the ground rules that he is in charge of business. Walt agrees, but privately tells Saul that he will be in charge of Mike. The team then take a tour of various locations to cook at, each of which is rejected. These include a box factory, a tortilla factory, and funny enough, even the laser tag business. Saul, stop trying to make laser tag happen. It's not going to happen. He then takes him to a pest control company named Vamonos Pest. When Walt sees the fumigation tents, he gets an idea. The next day, the team watches the Vamonos workers. Saul explains that they're burglars and are trustworthy when it comes to crime. Walt suggests cooking in the houses before they're fumigated, as no one will investigate them. Though it will require work to set up each time, they ultimately agree to it. Later, Skinny Pete and Badger are sent to buy roadie cases to hold the lab equipment. They ask Jesse if they can get involved, but noticing Mike watching, he declines them. Mike then instructs the Vamonos Pest team about the new operations. He forbids them from stealing and instructs them to obey Walt and Jesse without question. Later, Walt and Jesse are planning for their new lab setup. Jesse continues to come up with good ideas, including using the hospital tent he saw in Mexico. Andrea comes over unexpectedly with Brock. She invites Walt to stay for dinner, which he accepts. Walt is then left alone with Brock, which is very awkward, given that he poisoned the kid. The next day, Vamonos prepares to fumigate a new house. Before they head in, one of the workers, Todd, tells him that he found a nanny cam in the house. Walt is impressed with his initiative. He and Jesse then assemble the lab and begin to cook. Taking a break for a beer, Walt talks to Jesse about his relationship with Andrea. He manipulates Jesse into breaking it off with her, suggesting that they can't be together if he doesn't tell her about his criminal life. Walt is doing this because he doesn't like the risk of having Andrea involved with Jesse. It's of course ironic given how much Walt keeps from Skyler, but there is an element of truth that secrets create barriers between people, something Walt is all too familiar with. Meanwhile at the car wash, Marie is having lunch with Skyler. Marie brings up Walt's upcoming 51st birthday, which causes Skyler to panic. She reaches for a cigarette, which Marie yells at her for. Skyler then breaks down and starts screaming at Marie to shut up, showing how damaged her mental state is. Walt and Jesse then finish up the batch, having made almost 50 pounds of meth. Walt then returns home and finds Marie there waiting. She tells him about Skyler's breakdown, demanding to know what's going on. Walt comes up with a quick lie and tells her that it's because of her affair with Ted. This convinces Marie, and she agrees to keep it quiet. Later that night, Jesse is with Brock and Andrea. He is distant, as he's been thinking about what Walt told him. Back at the White residence, Skyler finds Walt and Jr. watching the movie Scarface. Skyler is unsettled by the violence in the movie, reflecting that their family is now in the same kind of danger. The next day, Walt, Jesse, and Mike meet at Vamonos to distribute the money from their first batch. They also take out expenses, at which point Mike reveals the legacy costs of taking care of his guys. Walt is unhappy with having to pay these men, but ultimately gives in. He complains about their net profit being lower than with Gus, but Mike reminds him that just because he killed him doesn't put him on Gus's level. After Mike leaves, Jesse tells Walt that he broke up with Andrea. Walt isn't interested in that though, and is only concerned about the money. Jesse reminds him that they have a bigger piece of the pie as owners. Walt then brings up Victor, comparing the situation with Mike to Victor forgetting his place. As the episode ends, this cryptic statement makes Jesse uneasy about their future. I've talked a lot about this before, but the original pitch for the show was turning Walt into Scarface, and many of the same themes and even actors from the movie are in this series as well. When Mike tells Walt that just because you killed Jesse James doesn't make you Jesse James, there's an interesting connection to history. Jesse James was assassinated by Robert Ford, a member of his gang, when his back was turned, just like Walt killed Gus with surprise. However, Ford became known as a coward for betraying James and killing him without honor, and Mike implies the same thing about Walt here. And that's pretty much everything I have to say about the episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next one, coming soon. Just because you shot the Nostalgia Critic doesn't make you the Nostalgia Critic. Russell, Sean, Harden Markness, Logan, Clean, John Reyna, Jesse Sterling, Andrew Stewart, Ops Racing Media, Daz J. Kid, Conan Higgins, Sam Cedarlin, Don Lucania, Celery Man, Jenna Marie Johnson, Brad Smith Studios, and Uncle Mike.